District 67, we have Melissa Melendez and Conrad Melton with us this evening. We're going to go ahead and do our opening speeches for 3 minutes. We're going to start off in alphabetical order. Melissa Melendez, you will be first. Please make sure you hold that microphone close.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I want to first thank the Lake Elsinore Citizens Committee for inviting us and putting this forum together. And Dane for moderating. Thank you so much, and for everyone for being here. As you know, I've been in the Assembly now for 2 years, and it's been very interesting. I have tried to stick to my core principles, which are, good government, transparency, and listening to the people that I represent. Can you hear me in the back okay? Is this close enough? Okay. So I've tried to stick with that. We've done we do a town hall once a month in a different city in the district. We move it around. We're like a tour. We have mobile town halls. We have, I get correspondence every Friday night. The routine in our house is I sit with my folder full of emails and letters I get from constituents, and I answer them myself. And I handwrite them, yes I do, because I think that that's good government. I think that's what people want. So, has it been a challenge in Sacramento being in the minority party? It certainly has. There have been a lot of good bills that have been defeated. There have been some very good bills that have been passed, like mine. So I've had very good success rate. So far, 6 of my bills, the ones that we've sent to the governor, have all been signed, and that's with bipartisan support. However, there have been a lot that have not made the cut. So I'm very pleased to be here tonight because I want to hear your questions. I certainly want to answer the questions that have been posed to the committee. I think there is a stark difference between Mr. Melton and I that I think will become very evident this evening, though I'm sure he's a wonderful gentleman. We're clearly polar opposites when it comes to our politics, but I think it's good that we're here to display that for you. And that's all I have to say, so thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. By way
of one and two. By way of introduction, I would tell you that I'm a native Californian. I went to public schools all my life, graduated from Cal State Northridge with my bachelor's degree, and then went on the fire department, got my master's degree part-time while I was serving in the fire department, and I served in the Los Angeles City Fire Department for 25 years. I have 4 kids, 2 of each gender, and 4 grandkids, also 2 of each gender. And I'm a pretty average person. I'm a Democrat. I'm a very, what's the good adjective? Serious Democrat. The Democrats this past year put out a 19-page platform covering all their positions. You may remember years ago that people would sometimes say, I don't know who to vote for, it doesn't matter, they're both the same anyway. I can tell you, as a serious student of politics for my entire life, the differences between the parties are gigantic. And I would like to tell you tonight, give you a message of hope that we're going to rebuild the California economy, the national economy, make everybody's dreams come true. Unfortunately, I see major problems ahead for the United States, and I believe we're headed for a revolution. I talk to young people who won't go to college because they've been priced out. I've talked to people my children's age who have been to college and who, along with 40 million of their peers, are deeply in debt. I've talked to the children who look at food and see that GMOs are being introduced into the foods and virtually funneling pesticides into our bodies. And the food farm people who raise chickens and cows, steaks, pork, are loading those animals up with antibiotics and causing antibiotics-resistant bacteria to kill 99,000 people in the United States each year. We'll talk more about these issues later. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask once again, please remain all applause till the end of it. We have quite a few questions to go through. We have 7 of them this evening. We're going to start off with our first question. This is going to be answered by Mr. Melton first, followed by Mrs. Melendez. Governor Brown recently signed a bill funding $3 million to pay for lawyers for immigrant kids, an option lauded by California Latino groups. How does the governor's action help or hurt your constituents, and what would you have lobbied the governor to do differently?
Signed a bill to do what?
Governor Brown recently signed a bill funding $3 million to pay for lawyers for immigrant kids, an option lauded by California Latino groups. How does the governor's action help or hurt your constituents, and what would you have lobbied the governor to do differently?
I don't think the $3 million in the California state budget is a particularly bothersome problem for any of the constituents in California, and I think it's probably something that although the Democrats did not have a platform plank on that specific issue. It's a relatively contemporary issue. I think it would be in harmony with the Democratic view of a good way to spend money.
Thank you. Mrs. Melendez.
Well, I would agree with Mr. Melton that in the Democrats' view, that is a great way to spend money. In my view, that is not. The $3 million that the question refers to was a measure that tied funding $3 million to pay for legal fees for the immigrant children that came into this country illegally. That was tied to school funding. And I think that's shameful. Because we know how, as Mr. Melton even said himself, we know how expensive it is getting for our kids to go to school. We know how hard it is for them to get the classes they need. They're languishing in community colleges because they can't get into the 4-year colleges. This is ridiculous. So to suggest that $3 million is nothing to Californians, I don't have $3 million, do you? I didn't think so. So I take issue with someone suggesting that $3 million is a pittance, because it is not, especially if you're talking about city budgets. I mean, city budgets are smaller and smaller, particularly in this district. So I have compassion for these kids that are brought to this country, sometimes, many times by their parents. Of course, they don't have a say in it. I do have compassion for them, and I understand why they want to come here, because we are the best country on the planet, hands down. No one is better than us. That's why everybody wants to come here. But the way to deal with this situation is not to take hardworking California taxpayer money to pay the legal bills for people who have broken the law. There needs to be, I think, an immigration reform conversation that goes a little further than what it already has. I think we're stalling a bit on a federal level. That's not mine to decide. What mine is to decide is to spend your money appropriately and in a way that you're okay with. And I don't think, at least the constituents that I've heard from, I don't think that they want $3 million going to pay that type of bill.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to question 2. Mrs. Melendez, the leaders first, followed by Mr. Melton. Governor Brown recently vetoed a bill to give the 4 newly incorporated inland cities of Wildomar, Aruba, Menifee, and Eastvale $19 million. Do you support the governor's veto, or would you recommend that the legislature convene to try and override the veto, and why?
This is the second time that measure has been vetoed and not allowed out of the Capitol. Last year it was held in the Senate. It wasn't even allowed to get out of the Senate. The 4 cities, Eastvale, Aruba, Wildomar, and Menifee, were promised this money. Okay, when they incorporated, they based their budget on the fact that they would be getting this money, not knowing that in the future, legislators were going to take that away from them. So now, these cities have incorporated, they've counted on that money, and they don't have it. And you know what? Their public safety is suffering. Talk to the folks in Wildemar. Talk to the difficulty they have with keeping police on the streets and keeping their fire services in place. And I mean, this is shameful that the governor vetoed this twice now. What I would do differently, frankly, is let the bill out. But he's not willing to do that. We've seen that. So do I support the legislature overturning the governor's veto? Absolutely I do. But here's the problem with that. Both houses of the California state legislature are dominated by one party, and that party is the Democrats. So if something is to get out, it's going to have the Democrats' approval, and we've not seen that. So would I support it? Yes, but I don't see it happening.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Melton.
Well, I find myself in complete agreement with the Assemblywoman. I fought hard for, my wife is as shocked as anyone. I fought hard to have the legislature look at this bill earlier in the year, and I sent some messages to the governor urging that he sign it. I felt, as she does, that those cities were stabbed in the back. They did things according to law, and then the law was changed, and they were whacked. So this is one of those issues that I certainly agree with the Assemblywoman.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to question 3. This one will be answered first by Mr. Melton, followed by Assemblywoman Melendez. To enable parents and families to choose enrollment in any school they approve of with state funds, will you author or sponsor a bill for California school choice?
I will not author one without consulting with the professional education groups that exist throughout California. I'm not interested in inventing something in an area that I am not an expert in, just to get my name as the top author. But I will look into if this is an issue that seems to have agreement throughout the state as a problem issue in California. I will study it myself. I will consult with professionals in the area and find out how, in my judgment, it ought to best be approached.
I don't need to consult with various education groups in the state to know that the schools are failing many of our children. And what our parents want they want the choice to send their kids to the best school that they feel is right for their children. So I don't need to do any consulting. And I have 5 children of my own, so I'm well aware of what the education system is like in the state. And if you just do a cursory glance at the headlines in the news over the past couple of months, there are many that will point to the failure in the California public school system, and not in all, right? But we have some schools that are failing our kids, and we aren't doing anything about it. Our hands are being tied. So I think that the parents should have the right to send their kids, whether it's homeschool, charter school, private school, public school, wherever it is they feel is best for the kids. And there's funding should be there to follow that child wherever they go. As far as authoring a bill, right now, parents already have the choice. They can send their children to a charter school, a public school. They can homeschool, certainly. But there's limited space, right? And then we often have difficulty with getting some of these charter schools open for a variety of reasons. So it sounds like the question is pointing towards a voucher system, which has been tried in California and hasn't gotten very far. If I thought that it would go somewhere, I would certainly be willing to offer that bill, and I would be happy to have my name on that bill at the top of the page. But it would certainly require a lot of bipartisan support, which is difficult when it comes to education. But it's important. You know, no matter where you send your kids to school, you want them. You only get one chance to give them a good education. That's it. One chance. And you better do it right, or they're going to be behind on a global perspective, right? Because we have our colleges now. Part of the reason why our college classes are so impacted is because many of our universities are accepting foreign students into their classrooms because they get more money for it. So you're competing now on a global scale. So if you're going to get into a university or a CSU or a UC in this state, you better be prepared. You better come into it with a great education to start with.
Thank you. Moving on to our fourth question. Yes, this will be started by Mr. Melton. In a recent editorial, conservative commentator Newt Gingrich endorsed Proposition 47, the initiative to reclassify low-level, non-violent felonies for certain drug offenses and thefts under $950 in an effort to divert hundreds of millions of California tax dollars from incarceration expenses to mental health, substance abuse, and victim services. Where do you stand on Prop 47 and similar legislation to cut back on the high price tags of three-strike laws in California?
Thank you, Dane. So I met with one of the backers of this proposition about a month ago, and we sat and talked for about 30 minutes about what he was trying to accomplish with this proposition. Because those people, when they hear, oh, we're going to lessen a sentence for somebody who's committed a crime, get very fearful, right? We already had AB 109 passed, where now we're releasing criminals early out of our jail system who should have been in prison. They are being released into the streets now. And you can talk to some of our local law enforcement, they will tell you it is a revolving door. And that's a problem for our communities, right? So reducing the sentence or, changing in which direction they go, whether it's to prison or jail, is worth taking a look at. I don't tell people how to vote on propositions. I'm not going to do that this evening. I will tell you, as the vice chair of the Public Safety Committee in the Assembly, they passed many, many bills that lessen the sentence for those who commit crimes. And do we have some people in the prison system who maybe are there longer than is necessary? Probably. But what I see in the Assembly is people coming to us saying, we would like some money to put these programs into place for rehabilitation, for teaching people how to change their lives while they're in prison, so that when they get out, they're model citizens, they take a different path. And whenever I ask, okay, before we give you a check, can you show me how your program has actually worked? Just show me the statistics, right? Because in any business, if someone's coming to sell you Whoosy What's-Its, you're going to say, do they work? Who else has used them, right? It's a basic principle. Not once has anyone ever said, this is how our program works. These are the results that we've seen that are positive. And so for me, I say, how do I tell my constituents, I just spent $1 million on a program, I have no idea if it works or not. That's just not right. So we do have an inherent problem with this type of legislation, in that no one wants to back their measure as far as if it works or not. So I'm willing to consider it. I do think our legal system and our prison system certainly could use a few tweaks, but I think that's as far as I'm willing to go.
Thank you. Mr. Melton.
Thank you. I'm in favor of Proposition 47. The California Democratic Party is in favor of Proposition 47, and the Los Angeles Times endorsed Prop 47 today. The United States incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. It is an unbelievable burden on the taxpayers of America to have to pay for sending people to jail, which was the measure by which politicians showed their worth in years past. The more people they could send to jail, the better they were doing their job. And like certain aspects of capitalism, which are coming to the fore now in terms of the plutocracy of this country. Incarceration is, when taken to the extreme, has as many problems as, if you look at it, you can find a problem.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to question 5. This will be started by Mr. Melton, finished by Dane Wunderlich. This falls Proposition 2 to create a rainy day fund for California by amending the state's constitution is endorsed by both Democrats and Republican parties. Is this an example of both parties working towards a joint vision of fiscally healthier California?
Well, that would be a surprise to most of us if it were. It's nice to, I didn't realize that the Republican Party had endorsed Proposition 2 as the Democrats have. Healthier California doesn't need a whole lot more than financially healthier individuals. The minimum wage needs to be raised. People can't live on minimum wage. It's not enough. It is not a living wage. And as the minimum wage goes up, the middle class has more money to spend. As they have more money to spend, they spend it.
The question was on Proposition 2, a rainy day fund, not the adjustment of the minimum wage.
Well, there you have my answer.
Thank you. Senator Melendez.
Thank you. I have a feeling we're going to get to a minimum wage question here very shortly, Mr. Melton, so you'll have your chance. Proposition 2. So this came up prior to me being in the Assembly, where they tried to get this rainy day fund set up, which makes sense, right? Because that's our savings account in our homes, right? That's in the city of Lake Elsinore. We have that established, and it's working well in many other cities in the district. So that makes perfect sense. The state should also have a rainy day fund for if something happens, right? So Proposition 2 requires constitutionally that a certain amount of money goes into this fund, and that can only be used on certain things. You can't go use it to buy, rail cars for the high-speed rail or something crazy like that. You have to spend it on certain things, and that's responsible. And so I hope that the voters pass this. I know that there are some out there who have criticized it it's a little too complicated and too complex. Maybe that's true, but I'll tell you what, it's better than having nothing in place, which is what we have now. And that is not responsible.
Thank you.
Stay here because I'm next.
Yes, some analysts are calling Proposition 46, the move to prevent prescription pill users from shopping around for friendly doctors, the doctors versus lawyers proposition. Where do you stand on Prop 46? Will it improve California healthcare by making doctors more accountable, or drive good doctors out of our state?
Proposition 46 is being backed by trial attorneys, so that should tell you something right there. Right now, they get a minimum of 40% of any profit. For instance, if you were awarded a judgment, your attorney would get 40% of whatever you were awarded for the first, I think, $50,000, and then they get a third after that, and more after that, in the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So what the trial attorneys decided was, we'll make this proposition about drug testing doctors, and that will get everybody ramped up, when it's really about increasing the amount of money that the trial attorneys can get when they sue someone. That's what this is about, and that's where the confusion lies. This has nothing to do with drug testing doctors. That's what they snuck in there because they realized when they did the polling initially, where it was just increasing the amount that you could sue physicians and nurses for, they realized the public said, we're not interested. Once they tacked on, oh, well, you don't want your doctor performing surgery while he's under the influence of drugs, do you? Suddenly, people started to pay attention. So please don't be misinformed about this proposition. This is absolutely a money grab by trial lawyers.
Thank you. Mr. Melton.
I don't have the answers on Proposition 46. It's a very complex issue. It has hidden impacts that I don't know what they are and can't predict, and the Democratic Party says pick your own, decide for yourself what you want on it, and if I were in the state assembly, I would be interested in how the people choose and follow their vote.
Thank you. Everybody? We are moving on to our last question this evening. A recent poll suggested 55% of Californians favor marijuana legalization, and a California ballot initiative to do just that in 2016 is underway. At the same time, our county supervisor, Kevin Jeffries, is pushing an ordinance that would impose criminal penalties for growing marijuana in the unincorporated areas of the county. Do you support Mr. Jeffries' efforts to increase expenditure of police resources used to eliminate marijuana growers?
The supervisor you refer to is Jeffrey Stone.
It's Kevin Jeffries.
Kevin Jeffries?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Well, I will.
He's a Republican.
Well, I've had some dealings with Supervisor Jeff Stone's position on marijuana when I was appointed to a position working for him. But I don't know. I have not seen what Supervisor Jeffries has had to say on it. I think that there is much to be said for the decriminalization of all drugs. I think it's an issue whose time is very close to coming, and I think America will be better off without the law enforcement energy and time that's expended on people who smoke dope.
Thank you. Melissa Melendez.
Okay, so I will address the question that was posed first before I address the comments made by Mr. Melton. Marijuana is legal in this state if you have a medical marijuana card, right? We all know the voters passed the Compassionate Care Act, and that's legal. It's still illegal federally, though, right? So you have this kind of difficulty with federal and state law not being in agreement with one another. But in the state of California, you can use medical marijuana if you have your card. And you can grow a certain amount, you can have a certain amount on your person. But having big fields of marijuana growing in residential areas invites one thing, and that's crime. It's valuable, right? And it's a nuisance to the community. So I absolutely support Supervisor Jeffries' attempt to make this illegal and to crack down on the folks who are doing this. As far as legalizing all drugs, that is the most ridiculous statement I've heard in a long time. And I apologize, Mr. Malone. I don't mean to offend you, but honestly, I can't imagine going to a school, a middle school, a high school, a grammar school, and saying, guess what? Now you're going to have meth in your school. Are you good with that? I don't think so. We're not going to legalize all drugs. That is ludicrous. If you've ever taken the time to walk through some of these communities that have been ravaged by drug abuse, by the parents, by the kids in the house, by the neighbors, by the gangs, and legalizing it isn't going to make it any better, because you know what? When you're high on something, not necessarily marijuana, but meth, cocaine, whatever, you do really bad things oftentimes. I mean, read the newspaper. What happens when people are looking for their money for drugs, and they're looking to get back at someone who stiffed them on a deal they made? That's ludicrous. That is so irresponsible to suggest that legalizing all drugs would be good for anyone in this country. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all our questions for this evening, but I'm going to offer both of our candidates a 3-minute closing statement, and Assemblywoman Melendez will be starting.
I will bet you I don't take 3 minutes. So it was kind of a short forum this evening, but I think you've had an opportunity to see that we are clearly very different in our politics. I have tried very hard to represent you based on the feedback that I get from you, based on the feedback I get at town halls, the emails, the phone calls, the everything. We send surveys out, and I read, I took a little gander at the website for the Democrat Party here in Southwest Riverside County, which Mr. Melton was kind enough to send a letter, or submit a letter to for his Democrat colleagues. And in there he said that I was already sending out my right-wing propaganda and sending surveys out for right-wing purposes. Okay, that's completely incorrect. And if you read the survey, you would know exactly what it said. The surveys are intended for you so that I can better represent you. So they ask questions about how you feel on the major issues. That's what I need to know. If I see a shift in my district where people say, now we really support growing marijuana in open fields and it's great for everybody, I need to know that. If your stance on the Second Amendment is changing, I need to know that. So that's what the surveys are for. I do the best I can, and I plead with you to continue to communicate with me because we've had some great success this year. Half of the bills that I got signed by the governor were ideas that came from you. Because those are where the best ideas come from. It's not me going up there and coming up with crazy ideas. They come from you. So I want to thank you for being so involved in this process. I want to thank you for your support and your compassion and your willingness to be here tonight to listen to us. And I look forward to continue serving you. Thank you.
Now, 3-minute closing statement.
Well, I want to thank the members of the audience for coming out tonight, giving us a chance to speak our piece, and thank you for being involved and aware of what's happening politically. I want to thank Assemblywoman Melendez for representing me as a member of this district so cordially and successfully for the past 2 years. Thank you for that. My problem and the reason I'm running is because if major issues come to the Assembly, I like the Democratic Party's approach to solving those problems far better than the Republicans. I started out by saying I believe we're approaching a revolution. And the young people that I've talked to see that America has been in wars since World War I, essentially, with only a few years off here and there along the way. They see that education is closed to them, that the minimum wage is too low to live on, that food can't be trusted, that the Colorado River is being hassled about, and they expect, as I do, that big agriculture will get the full share of the water they want, and the people will be asked to ration. They see that corporations are getting an extra cut out of the money and not carrying their share. Yet I mentioned earlier that the National Football League, with its $30 billion a year of $30 billion annual income from TV ads, still maintains its status as a non-profit corporation and pays no corporate taxes. The distribution of America's wealth, with 80% of the people, we're the 80%. We have 11% of America's capital, and that leaves 19% of America's people to control 89% of the wealth. And finally, global warming. global warming is a disaster that's coming, and I'm out of time, so I'm not going to tell you the answer like Nixon could have told you the answer, how he was going to stop the Vietnam War. As soon as he was elected, you'll have to just elect me and trust that I'll do it like he did. Thanks for being there.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember, also candidates this evening for Senator Melendez and Mr. Conrad Melton, applying for State Assembly District 67. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Ladies and gentlemen.